everybody. There's only one thing to be said in a time like this. Don't try and follow me. As we go into another episode of the Grunge Bible Podcast, don't follow. My name is Ethan Shell. I'm joined by Chris Salona. The Alice in Chains feels are strong right now in the don't follow realm. Also a great quote that was a quote by one of my friends who, if he came up with that when he said it, it was great because it was ironic.
Absolutely.
And hilarious. But we're back for another episode. This is episode 241. Straight. Haven't missed an episode in 241 weeks.
We haven't missed a single week.
We're closing in on 5 years straight. As I said, Ethan and Chris here. You guys know us if you're listening. If this is your first time listeners, we want to thank you so much for joining along. Welcome. We hope we do a good job. We recommend that you go back and you find a topic or something that you'd like to really listen to and give that a shot because, maybe you're not, as you see by the title, maybe you're not an Alice in Chains fan, and that would be strange, first off.
Really bizarre.
But maybe you're here for, I don't know, Smashing Pumpkins or something, which we do every so often.
Yeah, maybe you're here for the Elvis bits for this day in music. I mean, you never can tell. So we're going to be talking about Alice in Chains' self-titled Tripod album, which turns 30 this week. And we did this a few weeks ago, Ethan. We're going to lead in with the words of thanks. We're gonna get the thank yous out of the way, and then we'll check in, and then we'll get into the whole spiel. So we'd like to thank everyone for listening, everyone for checking us out, whether you've been with us for the first time, as Ethan said today, or you've been with us for a while or anywhere in between. Thanks for listening. If you're interested in supporting us, listening is enough. You can also give us a review that we will read on air. You can share this show with some friends, or you can give us your money, and you can do that by navigating over to the show notes and clicking on that link for the Patreon. We have a Patreon. There are 3 tiers, $2, $5, and $10. You can select one of those tiers, or you can give any amount that you see fit. And if you join at the top tier, not only is that a one-time coupon where I will come anywhere in the world to help you move, we will also say your name every week with our utmost gratitude. And we're going to start at the top with the two bastions who have decided to give far more than the $10. And the top donor of the Grunge Bible Patreon is the tag team of Abraham and Frank, followed by the Cracker Man. Both those two factions are leading the way in terms of financial support for Grunge Bible, followed by the rest of the top tier over on Patreon. That is Carlene Salona, Jamie Lynn, What the Fuck is Up, Denny's, Doug Endy, Nikki Six, Black Hole Sean, Seattle 4 Fanboy from New Jersey, Sherry Matthews, Eddie Vedder Got Me Through My Second Divorce, Gochu John, Russell, King Buzzo Stole My Hair, The Michael Dooley Project, A Bit Dusty, Ultra Mega OK, Heidi in Chains, Grits Likes Pasta, and Look in California, Feeling Minnesota. So thank you for your support. You're allowing us to continue this project. And for those keeping score at home, we are 19 weeks away from the 5-year anniversary. So it's coming. We've almost been doing this show for 5 years. So if you want to solidify the opportunity and solidify us making 5 years, show us some support. You can give us some financial support. Every dollar that you spend will go to us so that we can spend it on this show, because that's pretty much what happens around these parts. So with that being said, we would also like to thank our producer, Drew McFadden, who has been with us for all 241 episodes, as well as a couple of bonus episodes we've done along the way, a couple of exclusive pieces of content over on Patreon here and there. But he's the man, and we got to get him on the show soon, man.
Gotta do it.
we need to track him down and get him on here. Aside from that, Ethan, I'm going to ask you how you're doing, but for those watching, you may notice that our condition is relatively similar to episode 240. And for those listening, we're going to fill you in. We are recording episode 241 right now, hot off the heels of recording episode 240. We've had a 30-minute break, so not much has changed for us, except I think we both ate some food. So Ethan, what did you just have to eat?
Good question. My mom has a coworker who, I'm not exactly sure where she's from, but she makes really good, Spanish rice, Spanish food. So I had some rice and beans with some marinated pork, and it was absolutely delicious. It was great. Right out of Tupperware container, heated it up, and it was great.
That's huge, man.
I was very content having that easily prepared and eating, so that's problems there.
That's big time, man.
Oh yeah, you?
I didn't eat a meal, so this morning I just gorged myself with pancakes and breakfast food, so I'm still kind of full from that.
Yeah.
But I did need some support, so I had 2 pickle spears, and I had a couple of spoonfuls of cottage cheese. So that's kind of what we're rolling. This'll power me through for this recording session here, and then we'll get the job done, and we'll see what awaits me on the other side of this. So should be pretty good. But hope you, the listener, are out there and you're doing exceptionally well. This is the first episode of November, by the way, coming out on November the 3rd. So we're getting into crunch time here.
Rested.
Yeah, this is it. This is the end. We're closing in on the end of the year.
Holiday season is officially here.
Yeah.
I mean,
we are
Halloween
closer
just
to
started.
the end than we are the beginning.
I mean, do you start the holiday season with Halloween or what?
I'm not really a Halloween guy, so I kind of start it with like the load in for Thanksgiving. Not to be confused with the load out by Jackson Brown, but
huge Thanksgiving guys here.
Yeah.
I think I can speak for both of us. I mean, I've definitely been on record saying it's one of my favorite holidays for tons of reasons: football, family, fellowship.
We're closing in on an episode where we just absolutely mail it in and talk about Thanksgiving for 10 minutes. So
Alice's Restaurant,
Alice's Restaurant Massacre.
I mean,
Creed at the halftime show in 01. There's a lot of places to go.
Yeah, Thanksgiving is just rich with lore from years and years, and we're very excited for it. So,
and
that'll take us into Christmas, and hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully, everybody out there is having a great time. Usually, we do a check-in. It's funny because we just checked in with each other, and our states are relatively the same. But let's check in on something different. Chris, how's the weightlifting journey going post competition?
Yeah, man, things are going pretty well. We've sufficiently deloaded, and we're starting again. So it's
we're now loading. We're back loading.
Yeah, we're back loading. So I think our next competition is going to be at the end of January. So kind of got a little bit of solid stretch to train here a little bit, but things are going good. We're doing just some different weightlifting related things, like a lot of like snatch balances and like tempo snatches, tempo cleans, just to try to dial some stuff in. Squat volume is back on the menu, fortunately. And we've also been doing just some like general explosiveness, athleticism. We've been doing some hill sprints too, which is fun. Because obviously we both did track and field. You did it for much longer than I, but that's a pretty central component, even though we were throwers. So it kind of does feel like riding a bike, just doing some acceleration development stuff. So I feel pretty good doing that, feeling like an athlete, keeping the body weight where I want to be. So yeah, things are pretty solid. What about you, man? It's kind of starting to get back into it a little bit, get some training under the belt now.
It is. I guess my last competition was, August 1st or whatnot. So took the proper amount of time off and definitely getting back into it. When you train like so hard for so long and you take that break, getting back into it is always difficult. At least it's getting more difficult each year. We're just, you just have to break through. You have to get like 3 or 4 weeks in of like being pretty consistent and whatnot. And then all of a sudden you want to go because your body's not hurt and you're not as slow to get going. So like, it's definitely been a slow start, mainly because I've been focusing on work and some other things where I'm just trying not to pressure myself to like get in there. I want to be, because usually when you're getting into it, you can go in and like you kind of, I don't know, you end up wasting some time versus when you're like kind of a well-oiled machine, you get in and be a little bit better. So we're getting back to, homeostasis, or getting back to being, excited to go in and put time in, put the work in, and getting ahead of schedule. So it's good, man. I'm doing a bunch of like preparatory work and getting sore, but not trying to kill yourself coming back because you don't want to lead to injury. It's all about building a good base. So it's been a little tricky, just like finding gyms and whatnot, and so we're testing a few things out. But like I like where we're at. Like I'm not, it is what it is, right? We want to be strong and healthy, and that's like, that's going to take some time. So
all you can do is all that you do.
Yeah. So everything's going pretty well. We're just a slow roll in the start because, that's what we need to do right now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's seasons of this thing, and it's certainly one season right now. So we're enjoying it. It's good stuff, man.
All right. So that takes care of the check-in and the patron thank yous. So now we are moving to this day in music.
Yeah,
and
we are.
We got a great lineup here, it looks like. And so on this day, November 3rd, in 1943, folk musician Bert Jansch was born. And we love good Bert Jansch. He was the songwriter for Blues Run the Game, right?
No, that was actually Jackson.
That was Jackson.
Frank
he
who
has
wrote
a cover.
it, but yeah, Bert has an unbelievable cover of it. It was a part of Bert Jansch has since passed away. I think he passed away in the 2010s, but he began covering it in the early 70s, and there's a lot of good video from throughout his life of recording it. And there's one that was towards the end of his life. I think he had been diagnosed with cancer, and like they did a session. Shot a couple of performances, and he covered Blues Run the Game during that one, and it was towards the end of his life, as I said, and it's just really, really just not chilling, but it's evocative of emotion. And Bert was unbelievable. I mean, his own stuff, obviously, but he's just a great folk musician, and we're all better for his having gotten in the game. So.
That's right. Even though the Blues ran the game, he got in it, and dude, he was all for it. And
wherever I go, the Blues are all the same.
I just want to read a few of the song titles that you're gonna find in his collection throughout the years, because it's so good. The names, like, you just know this dude, like, I mean, he was a folk artist, folk bluesy. So we have Running from Home, The Wagoner's Lad, Needle of Death.
Oh, jeez.
Let's see. Where's Poison? Goodbye Pork Pie Hat.
Of course.
Tick Talkative. I'm not sure. Open Up the Watergate. Brought with the Rain. And my favorite, or one of my favorite, just the title is Cocaine.
Hey. Cocaine happens.
And then this one, I Cannot Keep from Crying.
Ain't that the truth, Bert?
I cannot keep from crying.
Yeah.
So just a lot of intrigue. I read these titles and I was like, what is The Wagoner's Lad about? Like, I really want to,
dude. Like where was the Wagoner?
Keep from crying.
And who was the lad? That kind of reminds me of there was a retrospective album that Jackson C. Frank's estate or stakeholders released after his death in 2014, and back to back, there's two songs. One, I Don't Want to Love You No More, immediately into Goodbye to My Loving You. Like, people just don't do that anymore. It's just it's different nowadays. But yeah, listen to some Bert Jansch. I mean, he was the man. Somebody else you got to listen to who was also celebrating a birthday today. On this day in 1987, Courtney Barnett was born. Absolutely unbelievable musician from Australia. Ethan, I know close to home for you because of the collaborative album that Courtney did with Kurt Vile. Really, really great record. But Courtney's entire discography is really, really awesome. I saw Courtney in 2022 in Boston. It was a super fun show. She just did she was on Jimmy Fallon's late night show like last week or a couple weeks ago. And then immediately afterwards, she went to this like really small bar and did like a pop-up with like 50 people in the room. And I've been seeing a lot of video from that. It just looks super cool. So I'm assuming there's got to be some new music coming from her shortly. I feel like that's usually the lead in. So we'll have to keep our eyes peeled for that. But happy birthday to Courtney Barnett. Author of one of the best album titles, in my opinion. Sometimes I sit and think, and sometimes I just sit. I mean, I love shit like that. It's right up my alley. So thank you, Courtney Barnett, big time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, her album with Kurt Vile is incredible. And it's interesting because is
it called Lotta Sea Lice? Is that what it is? I can't remember.
No, it's called. No, that might be right. Hold on, I just had it up.
Something like that. I don't know. That's not important, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm feeling.
Yeah, it is called Lotta Sea Lice, released in 2017.
That's awesome. Yeah, there it is.
It's good stuff, man.
Things take time.
Yeah, that was the most recent one. That was a good one. I have a T-shirt of that one. Whenever I want to look really performative in the coffee shop, I got to break that one out.
So that came from that was released in 21. So it's been a while. Like I haven't listened to her in years. It's crazy how time.
Been a little bit.
Yeah,
there's a new single out from October 15th. So presumably.
Very, very recent. So I'm excited to listen to that. Like I said, it's been a while, so that'll be interesting. And I'd love to go see her. Haven't yet. So
it's a good show, man. You'd like it.
Awesome. Okay, moving to 1990. Ice Ice Baby by Vanilla Ice hits number 1 in the U.S., marking the first time a rapper has topped the charts. And
huge
news for white guys in the 90s. I mean, this is big.
That's like that meme. It's like, God forbid a white boy get a little motion.
Yeah, I heard again. Was not there for the time when it happened, but I heard Vanilla Ice was pretty cold back then.
I'm hearing a lot of good things.
I'm hearing the reports are back, and the reports were good. So, he was ahead of his time. He was good. So,
a lot of reports there. One more event to mark on this day in music history. On actually last year in 2024, on November the 3rd. Quincy Jones passed away at age 91, and Quincy was, probably one of the greatest and most famous music men, producer, composer, arranger, what have you. Some stats: Quincy accrued 28 Grammys throughout his career. He did the film score for many, many different movies. He was also the driving force behind "We Are the World," the fundraising song that pretty much every musician in history got together for in 1985 to raise funds for the Ethiopian famine at the time. Quincy was the man. He has his fingerprints all over the music world, and we commemorate his life on the first anniversary of his death here today. So that is this day in music. And with that, I think it's time we shift into the main topic here. Something that we've discussed in passing incessantly throughout the life of the Grunge Bible podcast, but we've never done a dedicated episode for the Tripod album. And there's no better time than now, seeing as it turns 30 around this time of year. As we know, it was the third full-length studio album from Alice in Chains, following Facelift in 1990, Dirt in 1992, and then a couple of EPs along the way, obviously with Sap and Jar of Flies, but this was the third full-length studio album that they put out, initially released on vinyl on Halloween 1995, October 31st, but then it saw a widespread release on all formats on November the 7th, 1995. And this one, obviously, I think is close to a lot of our hearts. We spent a lot of time over the years talking grunge rock with Eric Lederman, and this is one that he absolutely loves. And he coined this record a fiend album, in the sense that when you listen to it, it just kind of grabs you, and you can't think about anything else, and you can't listen about anything else for a while. It's dark, it's heavy, it's quintessential Alice in Chains, and you can feel the foreboding, feelings that were in the room at the time, and that certainly surrounded the band at the time. So as we get into some background for this record here, as we said, by the time 1995 came around, it had been, 3 years since their last full-length record, Dirt, in 1992, and they toured that one pretty heavily in 92 and 93, and towards the end of that tour, the original bassist for Alice in Chains, Mike Starr, ended up being dismissed from the band due to various issues, which are well documented all over the all of the internet and whatnot. And following that, there were some tours that were scheduled and tours that were canceled because of, namely because of that, and then Lane Staley's growing issues with addiction and mental illness and what have you. So there was a little bit of a hiatus, especially when, come 1994, the Mad Season project began, with Lane Staley teaming up with Mike McCready, Baker Saunders, and Barrett Martin to form that project. So there was a lot of doubt around the future of Alice in Chains, and at the time, Jerry was struggling with Lane going off and doing another project. Sean Kinney, the drummer, was feeling pretty disillusioned with the way the band was going, in the sense that, they'd become pretty unreliable to be able to count on the band to be there, whether to tour or to make music together. So there was a little bit period of dormancy, following Jar of Flies in 1994, following the Mad Season project. So, Jerry's a writer, so he does what writers do. He started kind of putting some things together, as time went on in 1994, not really sure what was going to happen with the Mad Season project, and whether he was going to end up putting a solo record out or whether Chainz was going to get back together. So he ends up writing throughout 1994 and starts collaborating with the new Alice in Chains bassist Mike Inez, and they had brought in various musicians from different bands from the era and from that time, to come in and play drums, add different parts. But they both had the idea that if they were able to, make some demos and record a little bit, as time passed, they had hoped that things would change, and that if they placed a request out to Sean Kinney and Layne Staley to come back together and work on new Alice in Chains material, that those two would oblige. And that's exactly what happened. They ended up agreeing to kind of get back together. So, flash forward to 1995, starting in March, the band decides to get together in a studio and start creating some new Alice in Chains music together. So similar to the creative process of Jar of Flies, there was not really much of anything that was set in stone prior to the time that they got into the studio together. So as we remember with Jar of Flies, it was a lot of just jam based. The guys would get in a room together and, play stuff and see what stuck. And once they had an idea, they would solidify it and then start making their takes individually of all of their parts. So that's kind of what happened. Jerry brought some of the demos that he had made in 1994 there and gave them to Layne maybe to write lyrics and see what happened. But the lion's share of what occurred were from those jam sessions. And, once, as I said, they would solidify it and they would, be alone in the studio and get their takes down and, put it together towards the end. Kind of interesting too, because none of the band would hear the finished product or hear the other band members' takes until everything was put together on a rough mix. So the biggest issue with this record, as it had been in 1994 for their touring obligations and would continue to be throughout the rest of Layne Staley's life, was Layne Staley's health and wellness. It was a massive issue. They decided to record in Seattle at a studio called Bad Animals, which now is called Studio X. It's still there, but just under a different name. And they chose to do it in Seattle, close to Layne's home, just to try to facilitate more consistent attendance and focus from Layne. But that it was very, very up and down with Layne. He was really, really struggling. And one of the production assistants, named Sam Hofstedt, he gave an interview once where he was talking about this, and he knew that Layne was really, really struggling, and in a lot of cases he would show up hours after he was supposed to, or wouldn't show up at all, and he was actively using at the time. And Sam had said, it seemed apparent to me that he was using because when you go to lock yourself in the bathroom for a while, it's not because you really like the bathroom. So recording starts in March, and they're making their way throughout. There's a lot of songs popping back and forth all around, and obviously Layne, being the chief lyricist for a lot of these songs, they come to rely on him not only for his songwriting but for his vocals, obviously. And they were really struggling with that, and production of this album dragged on and on throughout the spring and summer of 1995, and it got to the point in the beginning of August where Sony, who was putting out the record, ended up the big wigs at Sony were growing pretty disillusioned with how long it was taking, how much money it was costing. So they ended up essentially issuing an ultimatum to Layne at one point, and they're like, you have 9 days to finish this record or else we're going to halt this project. And Layne was able to buckle down, and they were able to end up, finishing this thing for all intents and purposes. So throughout these sessions, which lasted, almost 6 months at that point, from March to August, they ended up creating 25 songs throughout this period, which is absolutely, given the circumstances, that's such a prolific output. Of songs here, and given the fact that 12 make the record, for example, there were many subsequent ones. I think a couple of them ended up out on the Music Bank box set and things like that. And then in terms of, songwriting and whatnot, the music was a pretty collaborative effort, chiefly between Jerry and Sean Kinney, the drummer, although Mike Inez's writing credits are all over the place as well. And Jerry Cantrell ended up writing the lyrics to the 3 songs that he had a prominent lead vocal part on. Those would be Grind, Heaven Beside You, and Over Now. And Layne Staley he ended up being responsible for the writing of the lyrics for every other song on the record. And in a Rolling Stone interview, Layne spoke about where he was writing from at the time, and he said he was just recording a few months of being human, which is right in line with what Layne had always said that he'd written about. He's like, we write about ourselves because we know ourselves, and that continued to this point. So obviously come 1995, Lane's few months of being human were a little bit different than they maybe had been in 1990 or maybe had been in 1992. And that absolutely shines through on this record, both in the lyrical content, but also just in the instrumentation coming from those jam sessions. And in 2018, Jerry Cantrell was asked about this record. And he said, there's a sadness to that record. It's the sound of a band falling apart. That was our last studio record to that point. It's a beautiful record, but it's sad too. It's a little more exploratory, a little bit more meandering. It's not as crafted as the rest of our records were. And you can absolutely hear that. I mean, some of these songs, we were just remarking before we started recording that some of these are pretty long and they are meandering a little bit and they're exploring different areas. And in some ways, Jerry's solos on this one, for example, are a little bit tighter, I think, than some of the stuff that came on Dirt and came on Facelift. But like the songs themselves are big and they're meandering. But I think a lot of that maybe just comes from the fact that it was kind of a jam-based recording process 100%. As opposed to like, hey, we cut this song, I cut this song making a demo, like now we're going to record it with the full band. So you get a different side of what these guys were capable of.
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. I mean, you get all the guys in there and they're jamming, and that's like kind of the creative juices behind it. You end up with songs that are 6.5 minutes long, 7 minutes, even 8 minutes on Frogs on the 11th track.
Everybody loves Frogs.
And everyone loves Frogs, and it came up to 64 minutes. Just over an hour for 12 songs. I mean, it's like an average of 5 minutes, 5.5 minutes. So it's a big album. Yeah, it's a big album. There's a lot going. There's some really, really great songs that everybody, I mean, this album, everybody knows it, but you had Heaven Beside You on there, Sludge Factory, again, Shaming You, and Over Now to finish out. And then there's a bunch of songs in between that, are good, but probably don't get as much. They get overshadowed by, some of the others. And, it's interesting that this was the last full length release that they had with Lane, before everything happened, and they obviously got Duvall. So this is, it's a special album. It's kind of the final project. And, it's definitely has the fingerprints of everything that Chris you just laid out, right? The kind of the distress. I mean, it has some really interesting guitar, parts and breaks to it. So right now I have God Am in my ears.
Oh yeah.
And like, it's so like, there's a lot of like syncopation, like stopping, and it almost sounds like a lot of the work that was done after Alice, like in the early 2000s, like other bands. Like it's like it's very interesting. Like, they did it, I guess, before and laid the groundwork, but it's like a lot of stopping the ear and some of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
the
tones, thing. Like this record, I think, is more revolutionary than Dirt or than Facelift was, in the sense that it does kind of explore different areas. And they had the space to, 64 minutes for an LP. Like that's pretty hefty across 4 songs. And, with that, you have a lot of room to move around, kind of bouncing around a little bit too. One of my favorite things about this project is the album artwork and the story behind it.
Yeah.
We're all acquainted with the photograph of the 3-legged dog. There's no words accompanying the front of the album packaging, and the story behind this. Apparently, this was the brainchild of Sean Kinney, the idea for the album artwork stemmed from an experience that he had when he was a child working as a paper boy. Apparently, in the neighborhood where he had his paper route, there was a 3-legged dog that always used to chase him when he was running the paper route. And it was his idea, obviously, for the album imagery. And he was a champion of wanting the record to be called Tripod, which colloquially you hear it referred to that all the time. The band didn't want to go for that, so they just ended up deciding to make it a self-titled record. But apparently at the time, they were working with Rocky Schenk, who was their longtime creative partner and did a lot of photography work for them and a lot of album artwork design. They had cast several different 3-legged dogs for photo shoots for the album, but nobody was satisfied with the dogs that were cast for this role. So they ended up finding the one that made the album. I guess they had it faxed into them from somewhere. I don't know where, but it was a fax faxed image that they got, which, I mean, hell, I don't even know about faxes. Kids these days, you don't know what a fax is, but that was a thing. A lot of people used to send faxes back in the day. It was all the rage. Maybe we have to get back faxes and beepers. We can maybe bring those back and see what's going on, because if it was good enough for the album artwork for Alice in Chains,
it is a real dog, right?
It is a real dog, as far as I'm aware. Yeah. So
I actually had a 3-legged dog growing up.
You did?
For over 10 years. Her name was Pogo.
I had the privilege to meet Pogo.
Pogo was a great dog, a really great dog, and Tripod, also a great name. But we want. It's funny because this dog on the photo is missing a front leg, which, from what I know, is a lot harder than obviously missing one of the back legs.
Yeah.
So Pogo was missing her back right leg, and we actually got her on vacation. We saw her at a pet shop, and they rescued her. There she is. There's Kristen Pogo back in the day. Yeah, that's an old Pogo right there. That's a good dog. But when we got back, we had for our barn, we have it's like a bifurcated door where there's a top and a bottom section, and we put her in like the barn right away. And obviously, she got up on one leg, put her 2 legs out the window, and was kind of like jumping up and down, wanting to get out there. And I said she looked like a pogo stick, and so we went with Pogo, but. Tripod is also, I don't know if we almost called her Tripod. That's something my dad would definitely offer up, like we should call it Tripod.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even speaking to the, there's a lot of metaphor and analogy that you could draw from this, as it relates to the health of the band at the time, with there being 4 members and one of them certainly really, really struggling at the time. And that's the one enduring theme that I have, whether it be Jar of Flies, whether it be this album, whether it be the brief touring that they did in 1996 in support of Kiss, or whether it be Unplugged, is just the fact that this band was able to do anything, and that Layne was able to do anything at this point in his life, because this was really the swan song for his career in the public eye, and really his career as a musician. With this certainly being the final, full Alice in Chains studio project that he did with them, aside from cutting a couple other songs later in the 90s with them. But it is you can tell the way that these guys talk about this record, they all kind of knew, what was going to happen and where it was going to go. And, time came where the album came out in November of 95. And obviously, you put an album out and you tour it. And in early 1996, Jerry Cantrell had in various interviews, he had said that they had the intention to tour it, and they ended up doing Unplugged later that year. And they supported Kiss briefly on their 1996 tour. But, as we all know, a full-length tour for this album never ended up happening, and it was the final full-length release that they put out with Layne Staley. In terms of the reception of this record, it was received pretty well critically and also commercially. It made its debut on the Billboard 200 at number 1, and it stayed in the charts for 46 weeks, so the better part of a year. And in the first year, I believe it moved, I'm not sure, but it moved 198,000 copies relatively quickly. And to this point, it's been certified 2 times platinum, so it's sold over 2 million units since this time. And I know for me, I think I got into Alice in Chains from, the Man in the Box and Facelift, and then you move to Jar of Flies and Sap and Dirt, and this was the last one. This was a tough nut to crack for me. I think just because it sounds so different from what I had identified as what Alice in Chains was, and also it's just so heavy. We've had multiple people over the years be like, be careful how much time you spend with Alice in Chains. And I think they're, ostensibly referring to this record in particular, because it is dark. It is brooding, to the point of some of the musical work almost feeling demonic in a way. Mm-hmm. And this is spending a lot of time in the darkness zone. And as taxing as it is as a listener, I can only imagine how taxing it would be to create something like this. You have to go to a place where there's a little bit of personal risk involved if you stay there for too long. And that's what these guys made a career out of, certainly as the 90s wore on.
Yeah, this album has a ton of really low, I don't know if they're all drop D tuning or different tuned songs, but it's all so heavy and really just picture Ben Shepherd, depth getting down there.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you have
didn't know any better. Ben was banging on the bass for these.
Yeah, and then you just have Layne's voice throughout this album a lot of times is that droning kind of whiny like it's like it hurts him to sing. And I mean, it is something to take on. And there's no other band that we talk about that wears their emotion and their story on their album sleeves. Like this band, like, you know, when you listen to an album, like, you're like, oh, this was 96. This is when Lane was doing rough. This is, oh, the Unplugged performance. Like, you see it all. Like, they weren't hiding anything. They weren't doing it. Like, it was also apparent. And there's no other band that I think does that. You know, I mean, it's funny. You hear about like people from the Grateful Dead, and they can tell by Jerry Garcia's voice. They can tell like what time period it was in, like, you know, because they listened very incessantly, obviously. But like, yeah, these guys like Alice in Chains, like, you watch a live performance, like, oh yeah, this is when, and you pretty much know exactly when it is. And there's not many bands like that. Yeah,
it's one of those weird instances where the entire project, when you listen to this, it feels like a project and a chapter that, like, this thing that they created is living and breathing, but it's closer to being dead than it is to being alive. Life support. Yeah, it's really, really chilling. And like, we've spent so many hours of our lives listening to this shit and talking about it on this podcast and talking about it on the page. But like, that feeling that I get when I listen to this era of this band has not numbed with time, and it's not become normalized for me. Like, I still feel that chilling nature of it, just because every second of this record, it's in full force, and you can hear that in Lane's delivery. You can hear about it in what they're talking about, what they're singing about, and you can hear it in the way that they're playing. You know, like, they knew very, very well that like this could be it. And just the fact that they were able to get this thing completed is, I'm not sure how it was able to happen. And you know, you have your hits on this record, and you have the really, really dark stuff. And I think you have the stuff that, like, as time has gone on, people really, really begin to appreciate. Like, I think about Shame in You, for example, where I had looked past that song for probably the first few years of my grunge Alice in Chains fandom, and when I really sat down and listened to it, I was like, man, this is one of their best songs. Like, it's just different. And I think by the time 1995 came around, like, this band was just different than it had been in 1992 or 1990 or even 1994. And it's a tough listen, man. You know, kind of talking about, I would say probably the most popular song from this record would be Heaven Beside You. I don't think that's too much of a stretch to say. And Jerry wrote that one about a relationship that he had that had kind of died. And he was a guest on, I think it was 120 Minutes when Matt Pinfield was involved with that. And he was in studio, and Matt was interviewing him about that song. And he gave shortest quote, but one of the best quotes, and one that we've talked about a long time. And he was talking about the struggles in the relationship and how to square that with his life in the band and his life as a musician. And he just simply said, life's a tough gig. And I think about that all the time when I listen to this record, because if there's one thing that communicates it, it's just how difficult life can be. And it's laid bare in front of us on this record through all 64 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, they finish the album with Over Now, which is another song that is one of the, you know, more recognizable from the album. And how fitting, you know, they had to have known, right? The writing was on the walls, and they put this as the final track. And, you know, it's definitely haunting to think about. And, you know, it's just, you wonder how much they knew, if they were talking, you know, what kind of the hiatus, and, like, you know, how stuff was gonna, you know, how it was gonna move forward. And that's an excellent song to finish, and one of my favorites from the album. Excellent guitar work throughout the entire thing. And,
oh yeah, that riff, the opening riff, like right after Taps plays and Jerry starts playing, like, that riff is so crunchy and catchy. It's so good. And I suppose to inject a little levity into this otherwise dark conversation surrounding this album, somehow I discovered this. I wasn't like a grunge guy necessarily when I was in high school. Somehow I knew of this song when I was a senior, and when I was a senior, I went, that was like the first time I ever went to like homecoming dances or winter balls or proms and shit. And I went to my high school's winter ball, and like, I asked this girl.
The Merkin ball?
Yeah, exactly. The Merkin ball. The mirror ball.
Yeah.
There's a mirror ball. Let's go downtown tonight.
Downtown.
Dude, as soon as we finish recording this, I'm gonna blast downtown and kind of get the mood back up. But anyways,
yeah.
Somehow I'd found out this song, and I asked this girl who I'd been briefly talking to, like I'd been set up, like, hey, like you should talk to this girl and like bring her to the winter ball. So I was like, all right, like I'm gonna do that, and like the vibes weren't great, but I was like, fuck it, like I'm gonna do it anyway. So like I asked her, she said yes, and like she did that thing, which is, I'm sure everybody has one of these experiences at one point or another, whether it be like a dance or a date or anything. Like you go and like you just know that like this is gonna be like a rough. It's not like a coffee date where you can dip after 90 minutes. Like it's a full night. Like we went to it, we were going to something afterwards, like with everybody else. And like, I'm like attached at the hip with this girl that like wants nothing to do with me, which rightfully so. I probably wouldn't have wanted anything to do with me either, but it was an absolutely miserable night, juxtaposed with the fact like all of my friends around me were having so much fun, and like all their dates, like
I can't wait to hear where this is going.
They're having such a great time. So like, so after like I grit my teeth, like, and it's probably just as painful for her. Like we get through the dance, it's like a 3.5 hour thing, right? And then you go to the after party, like somebody's house we're at, and like we're hanging out there, and like she's waiting for her ride or whatever, and like she finally leaves, and like
so
the party's
over now.
And yeah, dude, like it was just me and one of my other buddies, like alone. Like we closed it down, and I pulled out my phone and I went over to YouTube, and I found Over Now, like a Vivo version or whatever the hell, and I just sat there. I was like, it's over now, and I can breathe somehow.
We pay our debts sometimes.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Wait, so that was the first time you heard the song? You found it randomly, or you were like, I have the song for this?
I had known it, but I wonder like what was going on in 17-year-old me's brain that it's like, hey, Over Now is going to help. And it honestly did, man. Like, it's been on my mind. Could you stand right there, look me straight in the eye, and say that it's over now?
But I can breathe somehow. When it's all worn out, I'd rather go without.
When it's out of sight, just wait and do your time.
Dude, that's such a young Chris Salona pull. I love it.
Yeah, mythical pull, if you will. But I mean, just speaking of the writing of this whole thing, like, we pay our debts sometime, and if ever truer words have been spoken, I've not heard them, because that is absolutely the case. So that song's always been a standout for me, for that reason. There's also some of these, obviously Over Now being one of them, but I think Sledge Factory, Heaven Beside You, and Frogs, they were all played at the Unplugged show in the following year in 1996. But I mean, top to bottom, dude, like even
was that their final show? No, that was the first show after hiatus.
Yeah, it was their first show after hiatus. Then they briefly went on tour with Kiss for like, I think, a handful of dates, but that was the last like proper, and even still, like you spend more time with it. Like I didn't really give much attention to Again, for example, and that is such a good song. Like that little bridge where like Jerry's hitting like the doot doot like the whole time. It's so good, and it's just like even in like the dark of darkness, they can still make shit that is in its own way beautiful. Like this was like the greatest lesson for me as a music fan, that like you can find beauty in darkness, and how they were able to do that, I don't quite know, but they absolutely did it with this one.
Yeah, it's definitely a big album. It's thick. It's dark. It's dense.
It's thick and rich.
And it has a lot of obviously components from the rest of the music that you heard getting into them probably, but it does have a different feel to it. So, like you said, Facelift, Jar of Flies, Dirt, probably going to go there. So this one is the album that you get to a little later in your journey, but that's what makes it a little bit more enjoyable, I think. It's because you know what to expect. And
this is like
or at least
this is like you go to the amusement park and there's rides where like you don't have to be a certain height to ride. Like you can do those. Like this one, like you had to wait a couple of years, like as a lad, to be able to be tall enough to get on this one. Like you had to cut your teeth in some other areas before you really dive into the self-titled album, for sure. And it comes around in its own time, and it certainly does, dude. Yeah, like I got Shame in You playing in my ears right now, and it's just heartbreaking, man. Like the whole Alice in Chains' entire story is heartbreaking, and like how those three, how Jerry, Sean, and Mike were able to, patch things back together afterwards and continue to create music with William Duvall is like really impressive, and how complex it must be to, probably never really stop mourning the loss of this band and the loss of Lane, but carry that forward and find positivity amongst that. And as we spoke about relatively recently on the show, like the whole concept of black gives way to blue, like that's the perfect description of what they had to do. And, you know, I think that like, you know, the ending process really began in earnest with this record, and it lasts, you know, to this day. You know, I think we're always going to be lamenting the loss of what once existed.
Yeah. It's in Heaven Beside You being on this album is like so different from the rest of them too.
Yeah.
Like it's such a bright, not bright, but like obviously a lot of acoustic guitar and like quieter kind of interludes. It's really good. Really good song. Yeah, that's that is Alice in Chains' self-titled Tripod album, and it's a good one. It's definitely the Fiend album is such a great way to put it.
Yeah, it sure is. It's not background music. It's not, you know, put it on while you're going to the grocery store. This
2 weeks in a row, man. 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in like 2 hours in a row. We just recorded the Elliott Smith conference. Like we got to do like a Smash Mouth album review after this, or Sugar Ray or something, just
Third Eye Blind,
just to get a little levity. Even that one's sad as hell. The Third Eye Blind self-titled. So I don't know. Maybe we'll have to do like a Kids Bop record after this just to get some levity back. But
man,
that's me too, man. We might have to, but. You know, I was surprised that we hadn't talked about this one at length to this point, considering we're 241 episodes in. But it all comes around, circle comes around each season, so on and so forth. So,
all right, I think that. Any last final words? I feel like that's pretty
it, man.
Solid.
This is another example that anything that we say is not going to compare to the experience that you get listening to it. So, 30th anniversary. I think we all got to listen. Yeah, we'll find our way.
Yeah, 30 years is great. So, everybody's getting old. We're all getting older.
Yep. Ain't that
all right?
truth?
Final thing. Is there any songs that you feel the need to bring up right now? I'm kind of. Yeah, I got to look right now. I didn't.
Yeah,
we don't have the inspiration from the week since
we don't, because I just already smoked my last cigarette for songs of the week. I'll give you some rope here. I'll select a song from the self-titled Tripod album. I am going to go with Shame in You, just because of how deeply in love I've fallen with that song really over the last couple of years. As I said, I'd overlooked it for a while, but you know, straight from Lane's heart. And I think especially too, like the Shame in You song, towards the end, like that instrumental outro that they have is just really, really beautiful. And when Alice in Chains got back together in 2006, they started playing some shows. It was fairly commonplace that they would do a short acoustic set before going electric. And during the intermission between the acoustic and electric set, they would play a tribute video on the monitors of whatever venue they were playing as a tribute to Lane Staley. Mike Starr hadn't passed away at that point yet, but it was a tribute to Lane, and it was set to Shame in You. And it's out there on YouTube. I typically post it on the anniversary of Lane's death. And I just it's impossible for me to separate this song, from Lane's death, even though it obviously predates it by 7 years or so. But it's heavy stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's my song of the week.
It's good. My song, actually, I'm going to go back in time to last week and pick an Elliott Smith song.
Nice, dude.
And I'm going to go off for the Figure 8 album, Everything Means Nothing to Me.
Oh, yeah.
And just like we were talking about earlier with the back-to-back song, right before it has Everything Reminds Me of Her, and then Everything Means Nothing to Me is the next song. So
I don't want to love you. Goodbye to my loving you.
1 + 1 = 2. It is a really, really solid song with a great build, a lot of repetition, and just simply saying everything means nothing to me. And they bring in the drums. The piano has a scale to it that, you just can feel like all the tension is getting greater and greater. And it's a really, really solid song. Just a small, quick one, but he has a few versions online where he is just playing with the piano, and the piano is such a powerful instrument. And it's a really good one.
I want to read the second verse of that song. I picked up the song and found my picture in the paper. The reflection in the water showed an Iron Man still trying to salute people from a time when he was everything he's supposed to be. Man, dude, Elliott had a gift, dude.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. So you got Tripod album and Elliott Smith.
I know,
so,
dude.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yeah,
welcome to winter.
Anyone who's listened to the last 2 episodes is also going to be craving a lighthearted episode for 242. So we'll
check in with a therapist with your friend.
Yeah. We got
to
check up on everybody. So, Ethan, thanks for joining me on this nice journey into darkness with Alice in Chains self-titled, and thanks for listening out there wherever you are. Go outside, get some fresh air after this, and
to quote Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie, I will follow you into the dark.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Big time.
All right, everybody.
All right.
Enjoy your weeks. We're gonna enjoy our weekends.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, man.
And
it's always good.
Rock and roll, everybody. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week.
We did it. See you guys.